Number 1. Triangulation. This is a subtle but powerful manipulation tactic that involves introducing a third person into a relationship dynamic to create division, tension, or confusion. The manipulator uses this third person as a tool to exercise control, destabilize the existing relationship, or divert attention from their own questionable actions. In triangulation, the manipulator may play one against the other, sharing distorted or confidential information between the parties, or using the third person to validate their own opinions and feelings, discrediting the other party. This can lead the victims to doubt their own perceptions and feelings, isolating them and making them more dependent on the manipulator. For example, in a family context, a parent might speak ill of one child to another, creating an alliance with the second and leaving the first isolated and insecure. In the workplace, a boss might share negative information about one employee with another, generating rivalry and distrust between them. Triangulation is particularly destructive because it corrupts trust and direct communication between the parties involved, allowing the manipulator to maintain control and avoid responsibility for conflicts or misunderstandings. Victims of this tactic often find themselves in a cycle of misunderstandings and conflicts, without fully understanding the origin or the role of the manipulator in these problems. Countering triangulation requires recognizing the tactic, open and honest communication between the parties being manipulated, and a strong sense of personal boundaries. It is crucial to question the validity of the information received, seek clarifications directly with the other parties involved, and refuse to participate in conversations or actions that foster division or distrust. Number 2. Double bind. This is a situation of psychological manipulation in which the person is placed between two contradictory choices or conflicting messages, so that regardless of the decision made, they will be wrong or at a disadvantage. This tactic is often used to confuse and control the victim, making them feel powerless, confused, and anxious as there is no correct or satisfactory way out. In these situations, the manipulator may communicate mutually exclusive expectations or demands. For example, a parent may criticize a child for not being open and communicative, but when the child tries to express their feelings, they are reprimanded for being disrespectful or overly sensitive. Here in this example, the child is put in a double bind, because if they open up, they are punished, and if they remain silent, they are also criticized. The double bind can also occur in relationships, where one person may tell their partner they want more independence, but at the same time becomes upset or distant when the partner spends time alone. The victim of this manipulation becomes confused and insecure about how to act, as all their actions seem to result in a negative response. This type of manipulation is particularly insidious because it attacks the person's ability to trust their own perception and judgment. This can lead to a state of constant self-doubt and decreased self-esteem, making the person more dependent on the manipulator. To deal with a double bind, it is important to recognize that the situation is a manipulation trap and not a reflection of one's own incompetence or failure. Seeking support from trusted friends, counselors, or therapists can help the victim validate their own perceptions and feelings. Additionally, setting clear boundaries and communicating assertively are crucial steps to protect oneself against this type of manipulation. Number 3. Projection. Projection is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator attributes their own flaws, feelings, or inappropriate intentions to the victim. This occurs when the manipulator is unable or unwilling to acknowledge their own shortcomings or negative behaviors, and instead projects them onto the other person, making them feel guilty or in doubt about their own actions or feelings. This defense mechanism distorts the victim's reality, leading them to question their own perceptions and to feel responsible for problems or feelings that actually belong to the manipulator. For example, a jealous partner may accuse the other of being unfaithful or flirting, when, in reality, it is the accuser who is having these thoughts or behaviors. Projection allows the manipulator to divert attention from their own flaws and transfer responsibility to the victim, often making them feel defensive, confused, or guilty without cause. This can weaken the victim's self-esteem and increase their emotional dependence on the manipulator. Confronting projection requires the victim to maintain a strong sense of their own reality and boundaries. It is important for the person to recognize when they are being targeted by this tactic and not to internalize the unfounded accusations. Keeping a record of their own thoughts and feelings, seeking feedback from trustworthy third parties, and practicing self-affirmation are useful strategies for combating manipulation by projection. Additionally, it is essential for the victim to learn to emotionally distance themselves from the manipulator and to establish clear boundaries, refusing to accept responsibility for problems or feelings that are not theirs. In extreme cases, it may be necessary to cut ties or seek professional support to deal with the consequences of this form of manipulation. Number 4. Time pressure. This is a manipulation tactic used to force the victim to make quick decisions, creating a false sense of urgency. The manipulator claims that action must be taken immediately to avoid negative consequences, or that a unique opportunity is about to expire. This method exploits the fear of loss and anxiety, reducing the time the victim has to think, research, or consult other opinions. For example, this strategy is often used in high-pressure sales, where the seller insists that an offer is for a limited time or that only a few items remain. However, it can also be found in personal and professional relationships, such as when someone demands an immediate response to a significant request or imposes an unrealistic deadline for an important decision. Under time pressure, the manipulated individual may end up making hasty decisions, often to their own detriment and to the benefit of the manipulator. The artificial urgency prevents the victim from evaluating all options, consulting third parties, or simply listening to their own intuition. To combat this tactic, it is essential to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate time to influence your decision. It is important to ask for time to think, not to succumb to the pressure to act immediately, and to remember that few decisions genuinely require an instant response. Additionally, one should be aware that time pressure is a red flag for manipulation, and that often, by waiting, additional information may emerge that will help make a more informed and balanced decision. Number 5. Inconsistency and unpredictability is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator acts erratically and unpredictably, causing confusion and insecurity in the victim. This behavior can range from extremes, such as being loving and attentive one moment and cold or disdainful the next, for no apparent reason. This pattern of behavior keeps the victim in a constant state of disorientation and anxiety, as they cannot predict or understand the actions of the manipulator. This tactic is often used in abusive relationships, where the abuser alternates between kindness and cruelty to create an emotionally unstable environment. The victim, trying to understand the manipulator's behavior and yearning for approval or love, may find themselves trapped in a cycle of trying to please the manipulator, never achieving stability or satisfaction. Unpredictability is effective because it capitalizes on the human desire for consistency and stability. When a person's actions do not follow a logical or predictable pattern, it becomes difficult for others to adapt or respond appropriately, which can lead to a state of emotional and psychological dependence on the manipulator, who appears to be the only source of solution or relief. To deal with inconsistency and unpredictability, it is important for the victim to recognize the manipulator's pattern of behavior and understand that it is not their responsibility to constantly correct or adapt to please the other. It is vital to establish clear boundaries and maintain emotional distance from the manipulator. Additionally, seeking support from friends, family, or professionals can provide the perspective and support needed to deal with this form of manipulation and rebuild self-esteem and independence. Number 6. Emotional blackmail. Here, the manipulator exploits another person's emotions to get what they want. This usually involves creating a sense of obligation, fear, guilt, or shame in the target, leading them to act against their own interests or values to satisfy the manipulator's demands. At the core of emotional blackmail is the abuse of the emotional bond between the parties. The manipulator may suggest, directly or indirectly, that their well-being, happiness, or love depends on the victim's action, creating a situation where the victim feels responsible for the emotional state of the manipulator. Common examples of emotional blackmail include phrases like, "If you really loved me, you would do this," or "I can't believe you would let me do this alone." These statements not only impose a false sense of duty, but also instill fear of loss or guilt for not meeting expectations. To deal with emotional blackmail, it is important to recognize when it is happening, establish and maintain clear boundaries, and communicate assertively. This involves expressing your own needs and feelings without allowing fear, guilt, or obligation to dictate your actions. Reinforcing self-esteem and seeking external support, whether from friends, family, or professionals, can also be crucial to withstand the pressure and maintain your own agency. Number 7. Gaslighting. In gaslighting, the manipulator may vehemently deny that certain events occurred, or distort facts to contradict the victim's memory. They may also devalue the victim's feelings, labeling their reactions as crazy or irrational, or use privileged information to discredit them. This leads the victim to constant self-assessment and the search for external validation. This form of manipulation can occur in personal relationships, in the workplace, or in broader contexts like politics or the media. The impact of gaslighting is profound, leading to anxiety, depression, and a loss of trust in one's own perceptions and memories. Countering gaslighting involves strengthening trust in oneself and one's own perceptions. This may include keeping a record of events or conversations, seeking external perspectives to validate reality, and establishing firm boundaries with the manipulator. In serious cases, it may be necessary to remove oneself from the toxic situation. Recognizing and naming the experience is also crucial, as it empowers the victim and diminishes the manipulator's control. Number 8. False social approval. This is a manipulation technique where the manipulator pretends or exaggerates the level of support, agreement, or approval from other people to influence the victim. In this context, the manipulator may fabricate stories, distort facts, or create an illusion of consensus to convince the victim that a certain opinion, behavior, or product is more popular or acceptable than it actually is. This tactic exploits the human tendency to conform to group norms and seek social approval. People tend to modify their opinions, attitudes, or behaviors to align with what they perceive to be the group consensus, especially in situations of uncertainty or when there is evident social pressure. By simulating broad acceptance or support, the manipulator can induce the victim to think that by following a certain line of action, they are joining the majority and, therefore, making the correct or popular choice. For example, in advertising, this can be seen in the use of testimonials from satisfied customers that are not genuine, or in claiming that a product is the best-selling without concrete evidence. In personal relationships, a manipulator may falsely claim that everyone thinks or says something to pressure the victim to agree or conform. To defend against false social approval, it's crucial to develop critical thinking and question the truthfulness of claims of popularity or acceptance. It's important to seek concrete and reliable evidence before accepting claims of consensus and maintain confidence in one's own perceptions and judgments, even if that means standing against the supposed majority. Recognizing and understanding this manipulation tactic allows people to make more authentic choices and less influenced by the pressure to conform to fictitious or exaggerated social norms. Number 9. Concealment of information. Concealment of information is a manipulation strategy where one party deliberately withholds important or relevant information from another party, with the goal of influencing decisions or perceptions. This manipulative method can significantly alter the victim's understanding and behavior, as they are led to make decisions based on an incomplete or distorted understanding of reality. This type of manipulation can occur in various contexts, from personal relationships to business transactions and politics. For example, in a relationship, a partner may hide information about their finances or past relationships, affecting the trust and dynamics of the relationship. In the workplace, a colleague or superior might omit critical details of a project, impairing an employee's ability to complete tasks efficiently or make informed decisions. In sales or negotiation situations, hiding information about the product, such as defects or unfavorable terms, can lead to a deceived choice by the consumer or the other negotiating party. In the political sphere, the concealment of relevant information from the public can influence public opinion and electoral outcomes. Defending against the concealment of information involves being aware of this possibility and adopting a questioning and investigative approach. It's important to fact-check from multiple sources, ask detailed questions, and seek transparency in all interactions and transactions. Moreover, developing critical awareness and not accepting information at face value can help identify when important information may be being concealed. By understanding that the concealment of information is a form of manipulation, people can become more vigilant and less susceptible to being influenced by decisions or opinions based on incomplete or distorted information. Recognizing the importance of open and honest communication is key to promoting more transparent and fair relationships. Number 10. Fear attachment. Manipulators using fear attachment often create a do-or-die scenario, making the victim believe that something terrible will happen if they do not comply. This can range from direct threats to subtle insinuations or the creation of negative hypothetical scenarios. The goal is to make the victim feel that they have no choice but to obey or agree with the manipulator to avoid the feared outcome. This technique can be observed in many contexts, including personal relationships, workplaces, marketing, and even politics. For example, a partner may use the fear of abandonment to control the other's behavior, or a boss may imply that an employee's job security depends on their compliance with certain demands. In advertising, fear attachment can be used to convince consumers they need a product to avoid some danger or social embarrassment. To defend against fear attachment, it's important to recognize when fear is being used as a tool of manipulation. This may involve questioning the reality of the threats presented, objectively evaluating one's own options, and seeking advice or alternative perspectives. Staying calm and not acting impulsively under the influence of fear is also crucial, as well as strengthening self-esteem and support networks to reduce vulnerability to fear-based manipulation. Developing a clear understanding of one's own boundaries and rights can help the person stand against attempts at manipulation that exploit fear. Moreover, learning coping techniques and resilience can help deal with fear in a healthy and assertive manner, reducing the impact that the manipulator can have on the victim's emotions and decisions. Number 11. Blame game. This is a common manipulation strategy, where the manipulator attempts to shift the responsibility for their own mistakes, failures, or behaviors onto the victim. This tactic aims to make the victim feel guilty, even if they have done nothing wrong, leading them to doubt themselves, apologize excessively, and even take on responsibilities that are not theirs. Manipulators use the blame game to divert attention from their own inappropriate actions, maintaining control and avoiding the consequences of their actions. By making the victim feel responsible for negative problems or situations, the manipulator can maintain a position of power and influence, weakening the victim's self-esteem and assertiveness. This technique can be observed in various contexts, such as abusive relationships, the workplace, or dysfunctional family dynamics. For example, in a relationship, a manipulative partner may blame the other for their own jealous or irrational behavior, claiming that it's the victim's behavior that provokes this reaction. At work, a colleague or superior might attribute the failure of a project to the victim, even though the responsibility is shared or entirely the manipulator's. To defend against the blame game, it's crucial to maintain a clear sense of reality and not accept blame for things that are outside the person's control or clearly someone else's responsibility. Strengthening self-awareness and self-esteem helps to recognize and reject unfair assignments of blame. Keeping a record of events and conversations can be useful for contesting false accusations and maintaining an objective perspective. Additionally, it's important to establish clear boundaries with the manipulator and communicate assertively that the attempt to shift blame is unacceptable. Seeking support from friends, family, or professionals can also provide validation and additional perspective, helping the victim to break free from the imposed cycle of guilt by the manipulator. Number 12. False praise. False praise is a manipulation technique where the manipulator uses insincere compliments to influence and control the victim. This approach is used to gain the victim's trust, make them lower their guard, or make them feel indebted. False praise is often used to soften someone before a request or to distract them from hidden intentions. Skilled manipulators use compliments to create a positive atmosphere and a false sense of security. When a person feels valued or praised, they are more likely to want to return the favor or maintain the positive feeling, making them more susceptible to influence. The compliments can be directed at the appearance, intelligence, abilities, or any other attribute of the victim. However, false praise differs from genuine compliments in its intention. While a sincere compliment is motivated by the desire to express admiration or appreciation without expectation of return, false praise aims to manipulate or extract something from the praised individual. The manipulator may not believe what they are saying, but understands that positive words can be a powerful tool to control or influence someone's behavior. To protect against false praise, it is important to develop the ability to discern the sincerity of the compliments received. Observing the behavior pattern of the praiser, the context in which the compliments are made, and the congruence between the individual's words and actions can help identify whether the compliments are genuine or not. Additionally, maintaining healthy self-esteem and not depending on external validation allows the person to accept compliments without being unduly influenced by them. Number 13. Victimization. This is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator presents themselves as a victim of unfair circumstances, other people, or events beyond their control. This strategy is used to gain sympathy, avoid responsibility for their actions, and influence the behavior of others in their favor. By portraying themselves as victims, manipulators seek to evoke compassion and induce others to make concessions, offer help, or modify their expectations and behaviors towards the manipulator. This type of manipulation can be particularly effective because it appeals to the natural human instinct to help and protect those who are suffering or at a disadvantage. However, rather than being a true expression of distress, victimization is calculated to achieve specific goals, such as diverting attention from inappropriate behaviors, controlling the people around, or gaining resources and benefits. Moreover, victimization can be used to invert the roles of culprit and victim, especially after the manipulator has made a mistake or harmed someone. By portraying themselves as the real victim, the manipulator attempts to avoid the consequences of their actions and may even get the real victim to feel guilty and apologize. To protect against manipulation by victimization, it is important to maintain a balance between empathy and objectivity. Recognizing when someone is going through a genuinely difficult time is important, but it is also crucial to critically assess the situation, especially if patterns of victimization begin to emerge. It is helpful to establish clear boundaries and maintain a balanced perspective on the responsibilities and actions of each individual involved. Number 14. Intentional silence. Tactics of silence refer to the intentional use of silence or refusal to communicate as a way to exert power, control, or punishment over someone. This form of manipulation is also known as the silent treatment and can be extremely harmful as it invalidates the victim's emotional expression and creates an environment of uncertainty, anxiety, and isolation. In this tactic, the manipulator refuses to respond to communication attempts, ignoring messages, calls, or direct attempts at dialogue. This can leave the victim feeling rejected, insecure, and desperate for resolution or explanation. The goal of the manipulator is to make the victim question their own behavior, feelings, and worth, leading them to assume the blame for the silence and often make concessions or apologies, even when they are not at fault. Silence can be used as a powerful weapon because it capitalizes on the human need for communication and validation. Without feedback or communication, the person at the receiving end may feel devalued and invisible, which can significantly deteriorate their self-esteem and emotional well-being. To deal with tactics of silence, it is important for the victim to recognize that this is a form of emotional manipulation and not a reflection of their own value or guilt. Maintaining one's own integrity, seeking external support, and communicating one's feelings clearly without begging for attention are important steps. Additionally, establishing clear boundaries and, if necessary, re-evaluating the value and viability of the relationship with the manipulator are essential to protect one's own emotional well-being. Remember that practicing the virtue of justice is a very important Stoic lesson. This includes treating others fairly and equitably, but also ensuring that we are not allowing others to abuse our kindness or empathy. Finally, Stoicism teaches us to seek wisdom and truth, which means seeking a deep understanding of situations and people's motivations, avoiding hasty judgments or based on emotions. If you watched up to this point, please leave a comment writing "Armored Wisdom," so we will know that you followed the video up to here. Also,